Let's talk about SQL Server 2016. I was asked to prepare 2 topics, and we agreed with Johan that StretchDB and Query Store could be something you would like to hear. So, my name is Damian Widera. All materials, everything I show you is available already on the drive. Please do not modify the content now, because I'm going to present from that content. So. Don't do the trick right now, okay? Right after the session you can do it. And I come from Poland, like Johan said. I am MVP, Microsoft MVP since 2009, so it's 6 years or 7 already. I wrote 1 book, but it's in Polish, so it could be very hard to read. But it's very interesting. It's about SQL Server 2008. And it was my only book, because it's not the... Well, if you would like to be a famous writer and earn a lot of money, then SQL Server is not the technology that gives you that money. Probably some other thing is... Well, okay. You can drop me an email. There is my email address, and I also occasionally blogging on SQLug.se. So if you would like, please write me an email. It would be great. As Johan said, there are 2 SQL Server conferences in May. I would like to tell you about the 3rd one, which we in Poland organize for the 8th time. And this time it will be held in Wrocław in May, 16th till 18th. So it's 3 days. And see who's going to be with us. Sanil Agarwal, Aaron Bertrand, Dejan Sarka, Grant Frici. I believe you know all the guys. So on Monday we have pre-conf done in English, and then on Tuesday and Wednesday there will always be a track done in English. So if you'd like to visit Poland during this conference, then please visit us. I think it's a good place also to be in May in Wrocław. Last year we had Adam Mechanic. 2 years ago Bob Ward visited us, so we try to have also some people from abroad. We still have places, so SQLday.com 216 in Wrocław. Okay, Stretch database. What is this? As we are administrators and developers, we all know that databases tend to grow. They are growing and growing and growing. So probably you all know that, and probably you have tables that are very big. Hundreds of millions of records or even billions of records. So it's not a surprise that maybe a single table be hundreds of gigabytes and the database is a terabyte size. It's not something very surprising right now. And people, I mean user, want to read this, want to have the data. You have to store them for a very, very long time, probably even indefinitely. Sometimes the users want to read the data, so they want the data to be online. That's the 3rd problem for us. So we have very big table, the data must be online. And this, please add to this some maintenance challenges like index operations, like static refreshing, and you see that all of that can give you a problem. How to work with that when we have a very, very big database with millions of rows in single tables, and the tables still must be online, and we have to provide the data to user. So probably we have some solutions right now, so we can expand server and add some storage, which can be very costly. We can move the data, the historical data, elsewhere, because in this very big table we can always divide logically the table into 2 parts. Hot data, which is very fresh data and user accesses is very frequently, and the 2nd concept is cold data, for example months old or 2 months old, and user wants to see the data very infrequently. So we could always move the cold data to some other places. We can try to do partitioning if we are lucky and have Enterprise Edition, so the partitioning works there. But if we use partitioning, we might still need to expand the server and add some new storage because data is growing. And we can always delete the data, but this could be a problem. So having this in mind, Microsoft proposed something which is called StretchDB. So we have a local database, and what's called the cold data can go to Azure and can be accessed from Azure. But it must be done in that way that it gives no maintenance overhead on your side. And for example, if you do a query, the query run on local side, but also is able to automatically take data from Azure and present to the user. So it's completely transparent from your perspective. How it works, the table is online, something is moved to the Azure, the application does not require any change. And of course some security features also work as they work from the box. So you can choose a table, for example, one of these, like order history. Then you divide the table, and some part of the table is sent to the Microsoft SQL Azure SQL database. And then, if application is connected and wants the data are transparently sent from Azure to local site, and at the end to the client application, to the end user application. How it works technically, there is a link server connection established between the local part and the Azure part, but you cannot access this link server. So you cannot, you will not find it on the link server list in the directory. It's not there. It's hidden. It's internal. It's only used to make the connection, but it's internal connection. So we have this local part, local data. From this local data, it could be that some part of the data are right now prepared to be sent to the Azure, and of course there is a remote part. Of course there is a remote part. And important, if you do a query, then data are transparently sent back from Azure to the local part and presented to the user. Okay, there are some steps that you have to do to create the stretch database. I will show you during the demonstration how to work with that. First, we have to enable this feature on the instance level. So remote data archive should be set to 1, this configure option. Then in the database, you have to create a credential with identity. Identity means administrator username for the SQL database and its password. So you see my password, but no worry, I will change it right after the session. Then you have to choose which database should be affected and turn the remote data archive to on. And then you can choose one or more tables and enable remote data archive on that table. So we have something like this, that business applications working without any disruptions. Every database, DBA script and tool also work as before, and developers can continue working on their application. So no changes in that part. Also, there are some security, and we have to remember that security does not change. When you use the stretch database, the security works as previously. No changes in that area. So for example, always encrypted will work, and the encryption key remains on premise. Always encrypted is also new functionality and technology that will be available in SQL Server 2016 for you. Row-level security works already on the Azure, and it will be working in SQL Server 2016, and audit works on both sides. Also, there will be a small change regarding to backup. I will show you how it works. Basically, what you should remember about backup, when you do a backup of stretch database, only data that are locally stored will be sent to backup, because there is no a concept of do a backup on SQL Azure database. the data is in the Azure. There are at least 3 copies of the data, and you cannot do backup on the SQL Azure database. Okay, how it works, that's the last slide. Everything else will be done on demo. So we have application, we have the local part, we have the cloud part, and for example, we have a table that we would like to send, that we would like to stretch, which, yes?
Just about the backups you mentioned, what if somebody accidentally deletes your order history?
From the Azure part? Yeah, it could happen.
Azure, right?
That's accidentally mean that you sent your username and password to someone,
It's
yes?
a bug in my application,
Probably.
say something. So
This,
how do I restore that if I can't?
well, it's an Azure, so if you delete the data, you cannot do it automatically. There are some options to buy some premium SQL Azure database that has copies of your data for 7 and 1 month, something like this, 7 days and 1 month. So you can take the data back from these copies. But those copies are done automatically by on the Azure part. You cannot control them, yes, because it's a service. This database is hosted to a service. Okay. Okay. Let's go back here. We have a table. We have a table. Let's say the order history. That's the table. And for example, some part of there is a query from the application, and some part of the table can be in Azure. So if you need that record to be sent to the application, that it's transferred to your local SQL server and sent to the application. And of course, it could be a network latency between Azure and local part, but this is something that can happen anytime. So let me go switch to the demos right now to show you how it works. Okay, first of all, we have to configure the local part. So we have to run spconfigure remote data archive, and it must be set to 1. And this operation requires you to be sysadmin or have server admin privileges, assuming I have this privilege on my instance. Interesting, this server is also hosted in Azure, because right now in CTP 3.3 there is a bug which prevents you from creating this StretchDB from local. I tried to do this, so right now everything is in Azure, but this is the full version of SQL Server 2016. However, it's not working. It's CTP version, so we have to be patient. Okay, I'm now trying to create a test database, which is called Stretch in Sweden. Okay, that's the creating part. Okay. And now, what I'm trying to do is also some demo preparation. I have a database which is called AdventureWorks DW 2016 CTP3. In this database, I have a quite small table which is called new fact currency rate. It has only 15 rows. But bear in mind that this mechanism is designed to work with very big tables, not that small like I have. But when we start the migration, I will tell you how it works, and you see that if I tried to start it on a very big table, I would have no chance to finish the demo, because the migration part really takes time. So I took a small table to my demo. You see only 15 rows. And now there are 4 or 5 steps that we have to follow in order to create this StretchDB. First of all, you have to create a new server in the Azure. I already have one. Then this mechanism creates an Azure SQL database for you where the migrated data will be sent. Please also do not forget to create a firewall rule, because if you can't or you forget, then you will not be able to send the data. I already did that. So I have it prepared. I do it like this way. That's my subscription. And one of those two IP addresses is from this machine. So I already have this IP rule done. I have server which is called SQL 2016 CTP 33, but as of now, I do not have any SQL databases right now. It will be created automatically for me. Let's go back here. The third requirement is that in this database that will be stretched, I have to create a master key. So I do it right now. And this is the part where my username and password are seen for you. And I know that it will be on YouTube, so I will change it right after. This is the server. This is the server name. This is the constant part, so database window.net. This is the server, identity Damian, and some password. Okay. And now this is the point where magic happens actually. So we have to alter the database. We have to turn remote data archive to on. We have to tell to which server and on which credential. And this credential, the name of this credential has to be equal to the server address. It cannot be something you can do on your own. It has to be the server address. So I'm altering my database right now at this moment. And if we go to my subscription, we should see in a moment that a database is created under the hood for us. So we can do the stretch in a while. I'm refreshing, trying to... Oh, you see? It's a database. It's been creating, right? It's been creating. So I can also connect to the Azure from Management Studio using server name servername.database.windows.net and my credentials. Oh, the server is not accessible. That's a problem because it should be. I try to do it one more time. What could be a problem that the IP has changed, but it's 1380.12.231, so this rule should be there. And what's more important, the database is created. It's still being creating. So let's do it one more time. We'll see. I see one database is there. We have to wait a little for a while. If this is done successfully, then we have to choose a table. And on that table, we have to have alter privilege to change its configuration to create a stretch on it. I see the second database is created for me. So hopefully this time everything will be fine. So let's see what should be done next. We have to change the table definition. I mean, we have to do alter table statement. And there are new configuration options regarding to stretch. So we have to set remote data archive on that table, and we can turn it on. And you see that there is something which is called filter predicate. So you can do a filter what should be still on the local part and what should be transferred to the Azure. That's one thing. And there is also a migration state. So to which direction this migration should go? This migration state can be outbound. That means that we would like to send data to Azure. Can be set to inbound. So we'd like to take data from Azure. Not working right now. Not working. And the migration can be stopped, paused. So it's the third option.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
It now shows two databases.
Yes.
Was that because
there was an error?
An error, yes.
There was an error.
Yeah.
So we have to take care and delete and drop the first one, which will not be used. I will show you in a moment which one is used actually. But right now I don't want to guess because, as you can see, there is a database name plus GUID. So I have no idea which is active right now. but I have a DMV for that shows me. So let's pick the first table. Remember that we have two, and on the first table, 50 rows. I would like to turn on the functionality and say that data should be sent to Azure. No filter predicate, so the whole content of the table will be moved to the Azure right now. Imagine that you have billions of rows, yes? It will take a while. How this works? There is a separate process. This stretch database process which works under the hood, and it's tightly integrated with the database engine. So every 20 seconds it starts to check if there is something to send to Azure. If the process finds something, it tries to send. How the sending part looks like? The sending part tries to send data in batches, and the maximum batch size is around 10,000 of rows. So you see that sending billion of rows to Azure will take minutes or hours, probably, or maybe days. I have only 50 rows, and you see my table has 50 rows and is very, very small. This procedure SP space used has right now a new parameter which is called mode. And this mode can be one of those two values, local only or remote only. So let's see how it works. So now you can see that my table has 50 rows, but on local part I have 0 rows. And 50 rows were sent to Azure because the last statement is for remote only. So you see that the whole table is right now sent and it resides in Azure. How can I see that? There is a new dynamic management view which is called DMDB RDA migration status, which shows you how the process looks like. See? It was started and 50 rows was sent to Azure in one batch. And it runs approximately every 20 seconds, sniffing for new rows. So let's play some with this. There will be a very simple store procedure which just send data to these two tables I created. One is new fact currency rate, and the second will be new fact currency rate filtered. We'll be playing with this table in a moment. So I create this procedure right now, and now I'm going to run this procedure 200 times. So we see in a moment that our migration process should start automatically. Right now it's not started, but I try to refresh it. So in approximately 10 or 15 seconds, we should see that 200 rows was sent to Azure. Because on this table, I do not have any filter predicate. So any row that is sent to this table must be sent to Azure. If you would like to stop the migration for some reason, there could be many reasons. One of these is a performance reason. I will show you how the query behaves. So you can do it that way. Alter table, remote data archive, and with this information, migration state must be paused. So I'm stopping the migration, and now I try to run my procedure again 200 times, and we can wait for a while, and you see that right now my table has 450 rows. The local part has this 200 rows that were inserted by the procedure, and the remote part has 250 rows. And this will not change because right now my migration is stopped for a while. For some reason, I stopped it. Okay, I can turn on my migration again. So again, alter table, remote data archive, migration state outbound. So this effectively turned off on the migration, and we can see what is going on. And probably this is the 200 rows. I'm trying to find it. No, it's not that. You see, the rows were transferred to the remote part. And right now, everything should be on Azure. That's right, we have it. Okay, let's do a query. This is what you would like to see probably. So let's do a query. Everything is on remote part. Select star from this table should return 450 rows or so. You see the query was executed. You haven't seen any change. I just ran the query. But look at the execution plan. If you see on the right, there is a part which says remote query. So when the table is stretched, the engine knows that there is something that must be run, the query must be run on the remote part. Telling the truth, the query is run on local part and also on remote part. Here there is information how many rows should be there and there, so it's based on statistics. So you have to take care about statistics and indexes as you normally do. Don't forget it, because otherwise the statistics can be screwed, and then you have problems with your solution. What can we do with our table right now? Can we delete data from our table? There are some limitations on this, and for example, it's not possible right now because the table is stretched. So you cannot delete it in that way. What's more important, you cannot do updates. Also painful, yes. And you cannot add new columns, for example. So in first version, we have a lot of situation that when we cannot do very simple operations like delete, update plus alter table does not work. Primary key does not work because you cannot enforce primary key on Azure in that way. Foreign key relationships does not work. And what would you like to see not working also? Check constraint default also not working. Okay. Now, better part. We can do a row filtering. The first example was very simple, but it requires that the whole table was sent to the remote part. But we can create a function, but remember that the function must be deterministic in order to work. So in this very simple example, you see that I'm trying to, I send the date time as a parameter and trying to compare it with some other date. So I have to explicitly convert this string into date. If you don't do this, this function will not be deterministic, not from your point of view, but from the engine point of view. Because if we don't know if this value is exactly a date, we have to run the function to know if this is a date. So this convert should prevent us from doing a mistake. Function must be deterministic right now. So I create it. And I'm altering, but right now I'm altering the second table, which is called new fact currency rate filtered. And you see that I'm trying to do remote data archive. I will send this table to Azure, but regarding to this filter. So, and as a parameter, I'm passing currency date column. So only a part of this table that fulfill this requirement, exactly this requirement. So anything that is older than 1st February will be sent to Azure. That is the concept of the cold data. So old data as a cold data, not frequently accessed, will be sent to Azure. And the hot part of our table will still be on premise. Okay, so table is altered. Right now, I'm adding 200 rows again to this table. The wrong is that the wrong part is that I have forgotten to turn off the plans, so it will take a while, so I can stop it. Some rows were sent. That's not important, but let's check the migration status. So you see something was sent, something was not sent. The batches are not always equal, depending of what needs to be sent, then the engine makes a decision what should be sent to the remote part. And let's check the new table. What's on the part that's for query store, that will be in a moment. What should be sent to Azure and what should stay locally. And you see that I have almost 500 rows, and 250 is in Azure, 248 remains on premise. So I have right now the table is really stretched. Some is on locally, some is stored in the Azure. And if I do this query, and now I can turn on the execution plan. So again, the same situation. There is a remote query part and there is a local query part. And there is information that estimated 248 rows is on local part. So the remaining part is on Azure. And the estimation right now is that only 75 rows should exist on the remote part. However, we had 250 as a actual. That was actual number of rows.
Question here.
Yes.
The remote query should generate a remote execution plan. Is it possible to see what is happening?
Right now we have only this information.
Yeah.
So we see that there is a remote part,
yeah,
which is described like this. And I don't know if you can see, but there is also this, the query has, you remember that this table has filter, yes? And see there is information about this filter here. It's also, it's like you were doing a cross join on this query. So you actually run the query, cross joining with the filter. And one more look on the filter, you see how it is built. It returns a table, and one is returned for a row that is older than this date. And if we return 1, this row is qualified to be sent to the remote part. So I even wrote it as is eligible. That means that the data will be sent somehow and sometime to the Azure. Okay, it's also not possible. Our table right now is split between remote part, a local part, and remote part. See that this delete should be executed on local part. So maybe I should be able to delete data from the local part of the table. You are not. So this is still not working. I mean,
well, this is unplayable remote, because you have less than.
okay, let's do it that way. Maybe then it will work. Still not. So if a table right now is stretched, you cannot do delete or update. You can do only inserts right now. Let's go back because we have only 5 minutes before the break. Let's check how we can see our stretched database from administration point of view. So sys databases, this view has a new column which is called is remote data archive enable. So we can see which database is right now enabled to be stretched. Also from tables, sys tables has the same new column, so we can see which tables are in our database are subject to be stretched. We have information about remote data archive databases. It's a new view. So this is the remote part, this is the name. So you see from this part which database is used. Because you see now we have 2. The first one was created because of the error, and I cannot establish the link. And this is the one that it's already used. So remote data archive databases. Also on the remote part, there are 2 tables that were created for us. And you see filter predicate column has the name of the function that is used to filter the rows. Migration status, that's the view that returns information about how the migration was done. So when something was sent to the remote part, to remote endpoints. And also information, SP space used, remote data archive, how much space is used on the remote part. It could be important for you because of the billing. Yes, if you use something on Azure, you have to pay for it. Those two you already know. And also a view that returns information about remote data archive databases. So we have information about the database name, about the external data sources, and what is the Azure SQL, what is the Azure SQL Server name. The last part, about backup. Let's imagine that we would like to do a backup of our database. So we do it as we usually do. So let's do the backup. And right now I would like to delete my database on the local part. So because I have backup, I can do this, yes. So I drop the database on the local part. Almost. It will be dropped in this moment. Okay. So I'm not, at this moment, I'm trying to restore whatever was sent to this file. So I'm trying to restore it. Done. So I should be able to run those queries, yes? Or not? Unfortunately, no. Unfortunately, no. Because right now, there is information that in this database, there are two tables. And those two tables are stretched. Some part of the data from these two tables are in Azure. And we have to make a connection. After restoring the backup, we have to make a connection to the Azure database. To do this, you have to run this procedure, sprda reauthorize db. You have to use the credential name you created previously. And this credential was created for the server. Remember, I passed my administrator name and passed my password. So if you run this, so you then make a link between the local part and remote part. And after this, it's really possible to run queries. But you should ask yourself what is going under the hood. And I tell you that the third database is going to be created. Yes. And because after you restore the database on Azure side, there will be next database, so another one created. We should see it in a moment. And data from the previous one is copied from that one to that one, is copied under the hood. And you will be connected to that one after all. So you see a lot of databases in the Azure. So you have to maintain them, because right now those two will no longer be needed. So you have to drop them. Remember about this. But maybe there is no need to have them all. So the link is now still in progress. You will see information that data is being copied from one location to another on the Azure part. Then the query will be working, that's fine. And what if you would like to, for example, take data from Azure to your local part? So you move data to Azure, but you would like to have them back. Then it should be enough to run this statement. So alter table remote data archive, migrate inbound. It's not working right now in CTP 33. So you have to do it manually. You always can do select into or something like this. If you would like to turn off this functionality, first you have to turn it off on every table. So I should do this. And then you can turn this off on the database level. However, this just turning it off on the local part. So all remote databases are still in Azure and you are paying for them. So you have to manually drop the databases on the remote part. And this is what I'd like to show you about Stretch database. So thank you for this first part. Now we have a break, and after the break I would like to tell you something about the query store. Thank you very much.